And so when I play on all the fairways. I figure if you can find the ball, it's a successful hit. I don't know how you play, but that's how I play. And if I can find somebody else's ball, it's been a good day. Usually I go with extra balls because I come home with none about hole 3. But I was reading recently, and they were talking about the golf swing in the chandelier, and man, this is an intricate process. Have you ever seen them play on TV? And oftentimes they'll slow the swing down, and you'll get to see this thing, and it's just all these things. They're showing where the elbow is, and how everything comes around, and then it snaps, and the follow through. And I'm amazed by how intricate this process is of swinging a stick. You think, well, how hard can it be? Well, have you done it? Oh my goodness, it's hard. And so you're standing there and you miss the ball and you're like an idiot. I mean, it's just right there. It's sitting still. This is T-ball. I mean, what can go wrong, right? And this is not part of the message. I was playing with a friend of mine, and he was teeing off right there, and I was standing over here, and the hole's that way, and so I'm watching, and he tees off, and the ball hits me right here. Man, you talk about hurt. And so I don't play a whole lot of golf, and apparently he didn't either. But so I was looking at it, and it talked a lot about the follow-through. Getting to the ball is one thing, but what you do after that and how you twist your hands or not twist your hands and open the head up and swing and all of that follow-through is a huge part of what's going to happen to that ball. If you don't have the right follow-through, you're not going to have the right shot. And it's more than just golf. For the sports aficionados out there, baseball's the same way. Your follow-through happens. Tennis, I've looked at that. How you flip your hand in the tennis rackets. Shooting archery. How many got some archery shooters? I know what kind of church this is. We're a shooting hunting church, right? We shoot archery. Follow-through is everything. You draw back, and you release, and if you do that, you're going to miss. You got to hold that, and you release, and you keep aiming even after the shot. Wing shooting with a shotgun. The tennis racket's good for everything. I mean, a golf club's good for everything. Don't laugh. This is all we had growing up. You laugh now. But wing shooting, a bird flies by, you can't just bang. The follow-through. Once you catch up to them, you squeeze the trigger, you've got to keep moving or you're going to miss. Right? Y'all that's hunted and shot, you've got to have the follow-through, right? Follow-through is crazy important for all areas of life. And we read a lot about it. If you go on the internet, you type in follow-through, it comes up as everything has to have follow-through in order to work. It makes no sense not to have follow-through. James in chapter 2 was talking about it. He says, what good have you done somebody if you say to them, hey, be clothed and warmed and fed, and you don't give them clothing and you don't give them food? All you've done is give them lip service. Hey, I want you to be full and warm, but I'm not going to give you any clothes or any food. So you're going to leave here hungry and naked, all right? That's exciting, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding. But that's the point he was making in James chapter 2. You can look it up. He says, hey, you can't say to somebody, you need to be fed and you need to be warmed, and so go and be fed and warmed. Peace on you. But you don't give them anything. All you've done is give them lip service. All you've done is offer them empty promises and broken promises, really, and you've not done anything really to help them. I read a story a couple weeks ago in our reading, a harrowing account of follow-through. 1 Samuel chapter 1 is the story of Hannah. And Hannah is a young lady who's married and cannot have children. And she's trying to have babies, and she wants children, and she can't, and she's barren. She cannot have any children. And in our day and time, in our society, if you can't have children, that's a big deal. I mean, today in our society, you'd agree that's a big deal. If a couple gets married, they want kids, and they can't have kids, that becomes a big deal. But in their society, it was a huge, hairy deal. This was like a scarlet letter for her, like a cloud of shame that followed her around. And because of this thing, she was depressed. She was despondent. Man, she was in despair. And she had this antagonist that kept antagonizing her about this fact that she can't have children. And man, she's going out of her mind, and she quits eating, and she's not responding to anybody, and she's in a fit of depression. And so they go to worship at the temple. Elkanah and his wife Hannah and their family all go to worship at the temple in Samaria. And she refuses to be consoled about this thing. And the Bible says in verse 10 of chapter 1 of 1 Samuel that she weeps bitterly before the Lord, and she prays to him, God, if you'll give me a child, a son, because a son in that particular time and place was a greater honor than a daughter to have. And so she said, God, if you'll give me a son and take away my shame in that way. Oh, there it is. Making a vow, she pleaded, Lord of hosts, if you will take notice of your servant's affliction, remember and not forget me, and give your servant a son. Here it is. This is huge. I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. Now, that's where we get the idea for our baby dedication. You'll see that on Mother's Day. We're doing a baby dedication here on Mother's Day. New mothers, if you want to get your babies dedicated, contact the office. We'll have that again in the bulletin next week. But that's what we do, and this is where we get that from, the idea of dedicating our children to the Lord. But this was not some time-honored Christian tradition that she was talking about. She was actually talking about giving her son to God. So she cried, and she wept, and she prayed, but she didn't find her Bible. There it is. I'm going to get there. Give me a minute. Verse 20. Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel because she said, I've requested him from the Lord. Samuel means heard by God. Shammah in Hebrew is heard, and El is God, and Shammah-El is heard by God. So if your name is Samuel, now you know what it means. And so verse 21, when Elkanah and his household went up to make annual sacrifice and his vow offering to the Lord, Hannah did not go and explain to her husband, after the child is weaned, I'll take him to appear in the Lord's presence and to stay there permanently. Verse 24, when she had weaned him, she took him with her to Shiloh, as well as her 3-year-old bull and 2.5 gallons of flour and a jar of wine. The boy was still young. She took him to the Lord's house at Shiloh, and she left him there. What? She left him? Did I read that right? And she took him to the Lord's house at Shiloh. Where's the next verse? Well, maybe it's not in the next verse. They slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli. Well, I'm not looking at it right now. But she left him there. She took her son after he was weaned. How old is that? Well, it depends on, right? We've all seen those occasions. We won't go there. Well, I figured 3. Let's even say 4. Maybe he was 4, 3 or 4. You got a kid back there in your lap. How old is that boy? George, 4 years old. Could you stand up for me with him in your lap there? We'll show him off just a little bit. And turn around so everybody can see him. Thank you, George. Appreciate it, buddy. Now stick with me. Can you imagine taking that little boy to this foreign place, this place where he doesn't know anybody, this place away from his parents and his family, and leaving him there? I was horrified. I'm reading this account, and I'm thinking as a parent now, because I am a parent, I'm thinking, no, you're not going to leave him. You take him, you dedicate him, you pray to God about him, you throw some oil at him, do something, but you don't leave the kid. He's 4, maybe. Scripture's clear that she left him there. Here's Hannah, who was so afflicted by her inability to have a son that finally now she has a son. God's answered her prayer. She has this precious little boy when all this time she couldn't have a child. Now, finally, she has a child. And she gives him up. She gives him away. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Part of me wants to say, no, don't do it. Don't leave him. And we want to make an excuse for Hannah. We say, hey, Hannah, we understand you were emotionally compromised when you made that decision. When you made that vow to God, you were in the fit of despair. You were desperate. We get that. God understands that. He knows you weren't really in your right mind when you prayed that. You were in depression. It'll be okay. Go enjoy your life. We can't stand the thought that she's going to leave her only son in a strange place with strange people and walk away. And the Bible says that she went and saw him every year. once a year she'd make a little robe. And I thought, oh, that's cute. That's sad. All right, it's sad. She made this little robe, and you get humor out of it. I appreciate that. Every year she'd make this little robe and take to her son. So we know he was small, and the Bible says that. Every year when she'd go to worship, she'd take a little robe to her son. She left him there and saw him once a year. It just doesn't seem right. Does it? People, here it is, don't miss this. She followed through with her commitment. She said, Lord, if you'll give me a son, I'll give him back to you. Lord gave her a son. She gave him back. Man. She followed through with her commitment. She prayed a prayer and she meant it. You ever heard that before? Maybe if you were here in the last weekend or maybe weekends before that, said, hey, if you prayed that prayer and you meant it, look up at me. Have you ever heard that statement before? And many people did look up at me. It means they prayed that prayer and they meant it. What's next is follow through. Follow through. You can't just say, well, hey, I was caught up in the emotion of the moment. I was caught up in something that was going on inside of me. I really didn't understand what was happening. It was all that was happening, the worship service. I was just all wound up, and maybe I jumped the gun there. And if that's who you are, then okay. But here's what God says. Follow through. Follow through. He's given us an example here of somebody who followed through to the nth degree, and there's no way what you've got to follow through with is going to hurt as bad as this. She followed through even to the giving up of her son because she prayed a prayer and she meant it. It had meaning. It wasn't lip service. It wasn't broken promises. It wasn't just saying what somebody wanted to hear. She prayed a prayer and she meant it. And now it's time to follow through. Here's the question. You still with me? Do you think she regretted it? Hey, you may go either direction on that. I tell you, in time, absolutely not. You know what? God rewarded her. If you follow the story out, she had more children. God opened her womb. She had several more children. I'm not saying more children replaces the one, but she didn't lose the one. She gave him to God. She saw him annually. And here's what happened. Because this woman prayed a prayer and she meant it and followed through, an entire nation of people were blessed. Samuel today is still recognized as the greatest prophet ever in the history of Israel. Outside of Jesus himself. Of course, Israel don't recognize him. The greatest prophet in the history of Israel. Here's the man that was salt and light to an entire nation. He helped turn the hearts of Israel back to God to get rid of idolatry. He was instrumental in that. Because of one woman's sincere decision and follow through, an entire nation of people were blessed. You think she regrets that? Knowing that her son was the one that was leading Israel because of a commitment that she had made and that she followed through on. Let me tell you something, you can't outgive God. If you make a commitment and you follow through with it, God's going to honor it. He's going to use it and make something out of it. But if all we do is pray these prayers and say these things and it means nothing in our lives, then what good are we? It's just lip service. It's just broken promises. And if that's a habitual state, then it's poor character. That's not who we are. We want to be the people that follow through with our commitments. So if you've made a decision sometime in the recent weeks, we've had a lot going on here, a lot of evangelism happening at this church here recently. Maybe you've prayed recently to give your life to Christ. Follow through. Maybe you prayed recently to gain victory over a certain sin, that you're going to give up a certain sin or sin area in your life. You've committed that to God. God, I'm turning my back on it. I'm leaving it alone. I'm honoring you in that area of my life. If that's something that you've committed, follow through. Maybe you've prayed recently to rededicate your life to God. If that's been your commitment, then follow through. Whatever it's been, whatever your prayer has been, the goal is to follow through on that. Make it mean something. Don't let it be lip service. Don't try to come up with an excuse for your emotions or your decisions. Rather, be wholehearted, rock-ribbed, assured that this is what God wants, that you're going to follow through regardless of the price. And I promise you, not only will God honor it, but God will be honored. This morning, we've got a couple that's going to follow through with believers' baptism. I'm going to invite you guys, if that's you, to go ahead and make your way on upstairs. And Paul, if you could lead that charge. Paul in here. Thank you, Paul, wherever you were. A couple there, lead that charge. But maybe there's others that's thinking, I've prayed a prayer and I've been struggling with that since then. It seemed like at the moment it was the right thing to do, but now I don't know. It's been a week or 2 weeks and I've not really done anything with it. It's just kind of growing cold. Stir the embers this morning. Take a page out of Hannah's playbook and say, hey, that meant something. And today, God, I'm saying before you, I'm going to follow through. Let me get you to just bow your heads and close your eyes where you are. There's not going to be a formal invitation on the sermon this morning. But if God's spoken to your heart, do business with Him. Spend a moment in prayer telling God whatever's on your heart this morning. Saying, hey, I am going to follow through. God, I want to give you my life. I want that to mean something. I don't want it to just be lip service. I want it to actually mean something this morning. Father, again, we thank you for your word, for the example that Hannah is to us, and how our lives should be completely surrendered to you in every area. God, that nothing's off limits, that nothing's off the table, that whatever you want from us, God, should be our joy to give. And so, Lord, I pray that you would create that heart in us. Lord, that the people here in the service this morning would understand, that I would understand, God, the desperate need that we have in our society today for people to follow through in their commitments to you. God, we thank you for it.